So welcome back to my beginner's guide for Civilization 4 Colonization. As we covered in the first video, you saw my essential startup, and I was able to get my economy established at a very basic level. Here we are again. I have a soldier, and now this is another unique part, a unique aspect to Civilization 4 Colonization. That being that civilians in Civilization 4 Colonization can be moved in and out of a city at will. Now, if you're familiar with most Civilization games, as this big number right here on your city grows higher and higher, it will add citizens inside the city, but those citizens must remain in the city unless, like in Civilization 4, you actually draft units using them. But in Civilization 4, all units are produced using production. That is not really the situation here in Civilization 4 Colonization, which I will try to refer to from now on as colonization for brevity. Now, I did touch on this a bit before, but I don't think I did it justice. There is a difference between units and professions. So here in the Civilpedia, which you can access by pressing F12, I believe it is. Yes, indeed. Here we have a list of units that are available in colonization. These are the basic units. For example, you have petty criminal. You have a master blacksmith, and the master blacksmith, the special ability is a 100% production of tools. In addition to your basic units, these are like the units that you'd normally have in Civilization. For example, your warrior, your rifleman. However, in addition to the basic units, these units can occupy professions, and this is what I mean. Your soldier is not necessarily a soldier until occupies the soldier profession. So even if you go back here to the units and you have here's a regular, or here is a veteran soldier, you can actually have veteran soldiers in your empire. If you do not assign him to the soldier profession, he will be considered a colonist. And to become a soldier, for example, you have to provide them with guns. In the case of a regular soldier, it would be let me just select it here. It would be 50 guns. It requires 50 guns. You can see right there. If it was a dragoon, it would be 50 guns and 50 horses. The exception to this in terms of military units is the cannon. As you can see right here, this is actually built much like units in Civilization 4. However, the rest of these units, if they are not mechanical units, in other words, if they're human units, they have to be produced using food. And that means that right here you can see in the city there is food. Currently we're not making much. We're making 2 food just because of the city, which means that if we introduce any more population into the city and they don't work food, the city will start to starve, or the colony will start to starve. However, to get another population, like in most Civilization games, this amount of food has to reach 100, I think, or is it 200? I think it's 100. And once that happens, you'll get another free colonist. Now, this is not always desirable, as I've mentioned before, because specialized labor is far more valuable than a simple free colonist. But anyway, we have a free colonist here who is a free colonist that is the unit type, and he is currently occupying the soldier profession. But we can move him to a different profession. As you can see right here, change profession. Right now, there are not very many available to us because he has moved once this turn. But after we skip a turn, as you can tell, this is an easy way to tell whether or not a unit has moved this turn is if the ring around them that is rotating right now is green or yellow. If it's red, they have run out of movement points. If it's yellow, they have moved already this turn, but they can move some more tiles. If it is green, they have not yet moved this turn, and they have their full movement points. But in our case, we're going to want to pause him here for a turn, and next turn we'll be able to assign our free colonist, who is currently a soldier, to a different profession because we have no benefit of a soldier right now. And to sort of segue into another point, in colonization, you usually do not need to actually have any units guarding the city. I mean, if you build a cannon, you can stick that in the city to defend it. It will be better than nothing, but it is not essential that you have a unit protecting, providing you have guns. In my case, I do not have any guns in my city yet because my free colonist soldier currently has the 50 guns that I started the game with. It made him into a soldier. So when he joins the settlement, 50 guns will go into my settlement here, and that means that if the settlement is ever attacked, one of the colonists will be pulled out of a profession like this, and it will be assigned to the soldier profession to defend the city. So that means that you don't actually have to have a whole bunch of units just stationed around your city to defend it. And as I suspected here, with this bit of land, it is actually an island. This is not ideal. Normally, you won't want to be settling on an island, and it is important to take a few extra turns to explore a bit more of the world. Personally, for me, since I'm not going to actually be playing this as I normally would, because I'm playing it to more or less demonstrate or showcase the game and some of the alternative play styles. I'm not going to be focusing on one specifically. Um, it's not going to matter a whole lot that I'm on an island, but ideally you probably don't want to be on an island unless you're going to go for a very early revolution, because it's a bit difficult to expand and protect it all if you can't actually, even trading between cities. Like, you'll want to set up trade routes, and if you have cities on an island, the trade routes are going to have to be composed of ships instead of just wagon trains. We'll get into that a little bit later. So I think it would be best now to send our merchantman ship back to Europe. And as you recall, Europe is accessed by clicking the crown button or pressing F2. And as you can see here, the immigration bar on the bottom of the screen shows how many turns we are away from getting one of these units right here. These are the immigrants that we can get. And if this bar up here, this bar right down here, fills up, we will get one of these three at random. The game will randomly choose. However, if you're a little bit impatient, or you see a unit that you particularly like, for example, in my case, the Hardy Pioneer looks like a good choice. I can hurry him right now by spending 80 gold. This price will go down as we get more crosses. So if I wait for a couple more turns, I'll get him at a much cheaper rate. But you want to hurry him along, or hurry any units you are especially keen on getting along. That way you don't get junk units for no reason. For example, the Indentured Servant right here would not be a very productive unit. We'd have to either educate him or send him off to the natives to be, taught a trade. So it's while the immigration numbers are actually pretty cool here, you don't want the game to usually select one of your immigrants for you. You probably want to spend a little bit extra gold and hurry them yourself. At least in my experience, that is what works. Unfortunately, our galleon, this is treasure, will not be able to explore much more. And okay, here we are back to the soldier. And we're going to find a new profession. As you can see, I clicked the Find a Profession button. And here are all the professions that are in the settlement that we can do. Farmer, fisherman. It tells you how much they are going to produce. Alternatively, we can be a different profession outside the settlement, and they'll tell you if these will be outside of it. So just for demonstrating purposes, I'm going to turn the soldier into what he really is, and that's a free colonist. So by selecting colonist, he just lost all of his weapons, and he is now just a standard colonist. And I'm not sure we can I'm going to rotate the view here. As you can see, New Amsterdam, there's a little gun icon right above it. Let's zoom out a bit. You might be able to see it here. Probably not. Anyway, there is a little gun icon right there next to the flag that shows that this settlement has guns, which means if you're attacking, you will know that that settlement can defend itself even though there isn't a unit immediately stationed, like there isn't a dragoon or there isn't a cannon or there isn't a standard soldier defending the city at the moment. They will still take up arms against you when you attack them. And this is important because the rebel sentiment, as we've covered over here, it includes all of your units, all your human units. It doesn't include ships or cannons or anything like that. But if your unit is human, he will be included in that number, which means that you don't want to have units sitting around just defending, because they'll be not really. I mean, okay, here is the deal. You want to make use of as many units as possible. You want to have them all utilized doing work. And if they're just sitting around defending, they're not being utilized. And since there are very few times you're attacked, it's just not worth it. Okay. All right. We need to do something with this free colonist. And since I'm going to be getting a Hardy Pioneer from Europe, let's find a different profession for him. He could be a farmer if I sent him into this city. But I think what we'd like to do is get a scout. So for now, I'm going to be putting him in this city probably as a fisherman, just because the city will starve if he's not a fisherman, because it's currently only producing 2 food. But once we go back to Europe, I'm going to be buying some horses. The horses are really expensive this game. I mean, really, wow, that's expensive. The prices do vary from game to game, and also some guns to sell to the Native Americans. And once we have some horses, then we can definitely go scouting. It would be much more beneficial to use the scout to go scouting rather than simply have a free colonist walk around the map. Okay, Next turn 6, and the Incan Empire has gifted us 69 fur. Now, it is generally not a good idea to sell. Here we have a ancient rune. Let's collect that. We got 154 gold from it. And I was going to say, it's usually not a good idea to sell raw materials. It's best that first you convert them. For example, fur, it will be converted into coats. It's best to do that for pretty much every resource. For example, wood can be converted into production. Cotton can be converted into cloth, fur into coats, sugar into rum, and tobacco into cigars. And of course, ore is turned into tools. And it's best to keep those resources around until you actually have the ability to convert them. Don't sell them as raw resources unless your warehouse is overflowing. Okay, so here we have the king. In my case, it's the king of the Netherlands because I'm playing the Netherlands. They never have a name. And from time to time, they will ask you to do stuff for them. You know, they will ask you to show your respect to the crown, essentially. In this case, he's only asking me for 40 gold, so I'm going to do this. The reason I might not want to do it is if he asked for a large sum of gold, and the fact that he's not increasing the tax rate. I can refuse the tax rate, but one type of good I will not be able to sell to Europe again. In this case, that's not what's happening here. He's demanding 40 gold. If I say, no, we already pay enough taxes, that means that he will become more and more upset with me. Yeah, I kissed his ring, and there we go. And if we contact him again, he will not be able to spare us any military protection. If he's unhappy with you, and you click, can you spare us some military protection? He will say, you know, something to the effect of, no, you should be able to protect yourselves or something. It's been a while, but if you're interested in recruiting units from him, it's best to stay on his good side. And he can give you a fair deal. I mean, 750 gold isn't all that bad for a soldier, but in our case, we're not interested. Because if you look, you have to factor a couple things in. If you purchase a soldier, for example, a veteran soldier, which is what he's offering right there, it will be a 1,500 gold at a base cost. So, you know, you're getting a significant deal if you're able to get the units through him, the military units. But, you know, in most cases, I'm not fighting in this game. This game is a lot, colonization is a lot more about economic simulation. So that's generally not an issue for me. But since the goal that he demanded from me was such a pittance, I feel it is really not worth making him upset over that. In case who knows what happens and you do need his help later on. Okay, now going back to Europe, as you can see here, we have 4 out of 5 crosses, and in one turn, we will get a new immigrant, and that would be next turn. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and spend 60 gold and hurry along my hardy pioneer. As you can see, the immigration bar reset. Now it's 0 out of 6 crosses. It used to be 0 out of 5. So as you can see, as you get more immigrants, it takes longer and longer to get them. But at the same time, you can start producing more crosses in your settlements if you need to get them faster. After I recruited this hardy pioneer, he is now in the docks, and he will wait there until we get a ship in port, and then I can drag him into the ship's cargo hold. As you can see, his spot was replaced by an expert lumberjack, which is also a very good unit, and we will likely be hurrying him next so I can get, because the expert lumberjack increases the productivity of city tiles if he's working wood by 100%. So in this case, here you have a city tile with 1, 2, 3, 4, I think we have 7 wood on that tile. He would be making 14. And if we improved it with a lodge, he'd be making 16, because if you put a lodge on it, you get an additional wood from that tile. But for now, we have our ship inbound in one turn. That's the merchantman that I sent to sail to Europe. And once the ship comes in, it'll arrive in port, and then you can start dragging units into it. You can drag goods into it, or you can drag goods from it to sell. And that's basically how the economic portion of the game works. Ending turn there, our ship is now in port, as you can see right here. If we click the load from docks button, it will load all the units here in the docks. In our case, it was just the hardy pioneer. And we're going to start buying some stuff. Now, horses are actually a very bad price in this game, but I'm going to buy some anyway. I'm down to 400 gold, which is pretty poor. And I think I'm also going to buy some tools. I'm down to 133. Tools are generally good to sell to the Native Americans. They sell for high rates, as well as guns and horses. The rest of the goods generally don't sell for much of a profit. So if you're not you don't have to focus on trying to sell them to the Native Americans unless you have nothing else to sell. Now, okay, let's go back to Europe again because I forgot to do something here. If I wanted to sell this stuff, I could either drag them into the European inventory that would automatically sell them. If I wanted to sell them all, I could just click the sell all button. And right here, you can see our transactions. It makes a list of it. And this will be cleared next time I come into port, I believe. But right now it tells me how much I bought 100 horses at 8 gold apiece for 800 gold. And now you have to make sure that your ship is going to be sailing back to the New World so you can use it again. And you can do this by clicking the Sail to New World button or simply dragging the ship into the outbound screen right there. It will arrive in the New World in 2 turns. And if we look here at the Founding Fathers, we can see that I am pretty close to getting our first Founding Father, which will decrease the travel time from Europe by 50%, which is what I was aiming for because I'm going to be sailing to and from Europe for quite a bit. And here he is. He's offering to join my Continental Congress, which is what it's called. If we refuse him, he will not offer to join us again, and another civilization will take him. If we did not generate enough points, exploration points, and political points in time to attract this guy before another civilization attracted him, we would not get the option to accept him into our Continental Congress. So I'm going to accept him. I think he's a very good founding father, one of the best. And we met another civilization. This is a European civilization. And they're sort of in direct competition with you. If they declare independence from their king before you declare independence from your king, then they will win the game and you will lose. But overall, I have found most of them, at least at this difficulty level, they pretty much leave you alone and they're never really a significant threat to your victory. The biggest barrier to you winning will actually be defeating the units, the expeditionary force that your king sends out. And right away, he's offering open borders. I really don't see any reason not to give him open borders. There might be some issue, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to sign open borders with them. So, it ends turn 9. As you can see here, our borders have expanded, the borders of New Amsterdam. Now, there is no, like I pointed out, there is no actual benefit to having your borders expand, but it will put pressure on the Incan Empire to give me the city. As it becomes more and more Dutch, eventually they should offer it up to me, providing they're still pleased towards me. And one way you make tiles more of your culture is simply by generating Liberty Bells in that city. One thing should be noted that before you go too Liberty Bell generation crazy, generating Liberty Bells is how the king of whatever country you're playing decides whether or not to actually add additional troops to his expeditionary force. So I think it's like the first time you hit 100 Liberty Bells generated, he will add one more unit. And then it just sort of goes up from there, but he will add more units at the same time. So in other words, the number of bells required before he will increase the number of units, it requires more bells than the first time. Sort of like the immigration system with the crosses. But so that's why it's important to generate some political points early on so you get some of the really good early founding fathers. But I would slack off a little bit afterwards and then not generate any until you're actually gearing up for declaring independence, because otherwise this force can rise exponentially. And that guarantees pretty much that you'll be unable to defeat it within the 300 turn time limit, because you are limited to 300 turns. Right now we have 291 turns left. We've used 9 up. And if you use up all 300 turns, the king automatically wins. So we're sort of fighting against the clock here. Now, unfortunately, the city that we found here of the natives, it was not on the coast, so we're not going to be able to sail our ship into it. But I'm going to just sail up here to the city to drop the Hardy Pioneer off and get my other unit back so I can turn him into a scout. Now I've got my treasure into my first city, and as you can see here, we can ship it to Europe without a galleon if we are willing to take, I think, a 50% cut in profits. Let me click the button once. Yeah, he will accept the treasure, but he will take 50% of it, which is generally not in my best interest, because this is essentially like stockpiling gold for me to have it here, and I know I'm going to get a galleon later on. So unless you're in dire straits and in need of some gold, I would generally recommend holding off until you actually get a galleon. Unfortunately, these fish over here, even though my borders have expanded to encompass them, they're just going to go to waste essentially. Probably not the ideal city placement as I think about this more. The best city placement probably would have made use of all the fish right there, and then I could have also settled the city over here. But, you know, You roll with the punches, I guess. I'm not an expert at this game, but I am. I know the mechanics of it and how to play it. So I'm not trying to do like a speed run or a super hard run here or anything. But that's just some insight from me to you. And so ends turn 10. Okay, we're gonna move our ship into the city. It's still going to take one more turn because our merchantman only uses, or it only can move 4 spaces per turn. And you will notice that the early parts of the game, it's not going to be a whole lot of action per turn. So you're going to have to, from time to time, click end turn without actually having to do much per turn. And we've met now the other, usually in a standard map, there are a total of 3 European civilizations. We have met the other one. So when I say a total, that includes myself and 2 AIs. Much the same as with the Spanish, we're simply going to say, there shall be peace in our time. There's really no need for war. And our ship is now in dock. And there are a couple of ways you can manage the goods. My personal favorite is through the city interface, but you can also do it here through the unit command bar. We can load goods or unload all goods. However, once we're in the city, we have a little bit more control. And for example, I'm going to drag the horses into the horse tile, the horse box, horse inventory. And then I'm also going to remove my hardy pioneer from the cargo and drop him into the garrison. Once he's in the garrison, we can select him. And as you can see right now, he is on the map. And now we can start using our hardy pioneer to start improving tiles around our city. For example, we would like to build a lodge here on the trees because it will increase the lumber production. And we would like to clear the light forest over here in the tobacco and build a farm, I believe, so that we increase the amount of tobacco that the tile can produce, which will, once we get an expert tobacco planter, we're going to be making a lot of raw tobacco to process into, to process into cigars. Okay, now that we have horses in our city, I'm going to drag this free colonist out of the city and into the garrison. And when we do that, we are given the option to choose a profession for the free colonist. All of these are outside of the settlement because I dragged them into the garrison. If I double clicked them, I think it would give me the option to choose any profession. Yes, all the professions in the settlement as well as the ones outside the settlement. But since we're only interested in him becoming an outside settlement unit, we drag him into the garrison. And here we choose scout. As you can see, it debited 50 horses from our total supply. And he is now a scout free colonist. And as we go here on the map, you can see he is now riding a horse. And this gives him an additional movement point, which means it'll be easier for him to move around the map. Now, in one more turn, we are going to get another unit in Europe. And I'm going to hurry along the expert Lumberjack for 60 gold because I want to make sure that I get him so I can start producing a lot of wood in New Amsterdam as quickly as possible. So now our new scout is not actually going to be a whole lot of benefit on this island because we've explored it all, but there is the mainland and we should actually get to that. So I'm going to load him up into the merchantman ship and we're going to also load the horses back into it as well as the guns. And we're going to try to sell these to the Native Americans on the mainland. And I'm going to go over there and do that. And there are a couple of reasons for doing this. In the beginning, the Native Americans will give you an especially good price for European goods, the 3 that I mentioned, tools, guns, and horses, as well as it will give us some trading points. As you can see right here, we need some trading points to recruit our first founding father in the trading tab of the founding father tree, I guess you could call it. It sort of replaces the technology tree for most civilization games. So we are focused once again on our hardy pioneer. Now, the important thing about a hardy pioneer over a regular pioneer is hardy pioneers, because that's what they are, they're hardy pioneers assigned to the pioneer profession. They're able to produce improvements on tiles 100% faster. So normally, if I decided to build a farm on this tile here with the tobacco, a free colonist assigned to the hardy pioneer profession would take 14 turns. But since this is a hardy pioneer assigned to the pioneer profession, he will only take 7 turns. And as you can see here, improvements in Civilization for colonization actually cost gold. In this case, it's going to cost me 20 gold to build a farm here. And as you can see, it tells you in the little pop-up menu what sort of like a tool tip. It tells you what building this improvement will do. In my case, building a farm on this current tile that the Hardy Pioneer is on will increase food by 2, lower wood production by 2, lower fur production by 2, and increase tobacco production by 2. So you're trading some off to get some more. It's essentially how it's going. Less wood, less fur, more tobacco, more grain. It makes sense. Okay, we are now revealing more of the mainland, and I really do need to get back to Europe to pick up my Hardy Pioneer, but first I would like to find at least one. Here we go. We met Montezuma. He is actually probably the most aggressive civilization of the natives, and now he just sailed into his city like that. And this is how we can actually start trading with them. So first of all, I'm going to select a scout and talk to the chief. And since we were the first to visit the city, we are given a gift. And in my case, in this time, it's 346 gold, which is why you want to make sure you get to all of the native civilizations' cities before any other European colonies do. Because if the other ones get to them first, they'll get that bonus. So exploring in the early parts of the game is very important. And yeah, so after that, he told us what he was in need of. He gave us a gift, and he told us what kind of units he trains. And this city trains expert ore miners, and they're in need of guns. We do have guns in our ships, so next turn, when the ship has movement points again, I'm going to be able to trade with Montezuma, and I'm going to give him guns, and he's going to give me a good deal of gold. Now, here is a treasure. It's actually a burial grounds, and I'm going to send my scout to it. And I discovered ancient treasure, which is never a bad thing. This treasure is valued at 645 gold, so nothing to sneeze at. Exploring early on is important. And as I've pointed out before, I think it makes a lot of sense to explore with your treasure units because there just aren't any hostile units walking around the map, at least at this difficulty level. It might happen that Native Americans will declare war on you much easier at higher difficulty levels, but I've never experienced that personally. Playing at this difficulty level, there is no reason whatsoever that you shouldn't go around exploring with your galleon units, not my galleon units, my treasure units. Treasure units have to be transported by a galleon, and that is how I keep getting the two words mixed up. So I'm going to explore with both the treasure and the scout. Okay, our ship is selected again, and clicking on the Trade with Settlement button right here will allow us to trade with Montezuma. So as you can see here on the left side of the screen, there are the items that Montezuma has in the city, and on the right side of the screen are the list of, the gold that I have and the goods that are in my ship. So to trade with him, what I'm going to do is this settlement is in need of guns, so I'm going to offer guns first. And I'll ask him what he will give me for this. And he tells me for 50 guns, he'll give me 1,000 gold, which is a really good deal. I think since we're in a bit of a hurry, we're also going to add the horses and the tools to it and see how much gold he'll give us for that. He'll give us 1,972. I'm going to actually be losing a little bit there on the horses. I'm not sure. But we're going to accept it now for sake of brevity anyway. That's almost 2,000 gold. As you can see, he has 3,520, so we're not, shortchanging ourselves. We know that he could have given us more, but this is all he's willing to give you. And it does no good bargaining with them because once they have their mind set on a certain amount of gold, you're not going to be able to influence it one way or the other easily. Like you're not going to be able to barter really at all. So I'm going to accept that. And now we have 2,371 gold in our account. And it's important usually to try to spend this. Don't leave a lot of gold sitting around because the king, when he does come to ask you for gold, he will ask you for a lot if you have a lot of gold. That's generally what I have experienced. Anyway, so now we're going to be sailing back to Europe as we already have a expert lumberjack waiting for us at the docks. We don't have any goods to sell, so we're not going to be stopping off at my city of New Amsterdam. And I'm going to check my founding fathers here just to make sure we still do not have enough political points to hire Peter. But once we generate a few more Liberty Bells, he will be offered to us. And as you can see, we already have enough trading points after selling those goods to the Native Americans. Okay, so the scouting continues. You should always be on the lookout for ruins or burial grounds. The second best thing are, of course, the Indian or the Native American settlements themselves. So once again, we found more ancient treasure. Things are going quite well. This treasure is valued at how much? 488. So yeah, we have over 1,000 gold worth of treasure right there. And I think that will conclude episode number 2. In this episode, we sort of took a look at beginning to explore the world, as well as how Europe works in regards to trading with it and getting new units off of the docks. So thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you in the next video in this series.